There we go.
Terrific.
Um, so I'd like to just start by asking you how you got into tea, or how you started your interest in tea.
Well, I've been drinking tea all my life. I grew up, in South Florida. My family is originally from Georgia and Arkansas,
Oh,
so the Southern sweet tea,
yeah.
runs in the family. And then from there, just as I was growing up, especially once I moved out of high school and I was into college, I wanted to experience more tea and just learn more. And ever since then, I always have been drinking different teas, black teas, green teas, herbals, everything. I love it all. And
Wow.
so, honestly, for years, I've been seeing, coffee makers and Keurigs and all of this. And I always thought, man, it'd be so nice to have like a tea maker. And so one day I saw an ad for the Affinity, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I looked at my wife and I said, babe, I said, listen, as soon as this launches, I have to get one. Like, I don't care if it's like birthday, Christmas present, whatever it is, I have to get one.
Right.
And so when I saw the VIP group, and to put the down payment, I was like, I'm doing it right now because I have to have this machine.
Wow. That's very interesting because that's my background on one side is from Arkansas. My mother's parents came from a little town in Arkansas called Cotton Plant, and so I grew up drinking sweet tea as well. And they'd boil it on the stove and then dilute
Yes.
it down, and then tons of sugar, and then ironically, on my other side, my dad's from Italy, first generation Italian, so he was
Oh,
into
wow.
coffee. So that's where
Yes.
the combination kind of came together there for me. But I grew up exactly that same way. And then I went my dad was in the specialty coffee business, and so I went to do a formal tea. So I was trying to figure out what's the equivalent of specialty tea, a specialty coffee for tea. And then I went and
Hmm.
did a formal tea tasting down in San Francisco with a guy named Mike Spillane, who's really probably responsible for any quality tea you have right now. He's the guy who is probably responsible for it being in the United States, because his
Nice.
family goes back 150 years. They bought a company called the G.S. Haley Company, and he's been doing it. His father did it before him for about 60, 70 years, and then he's done it for all of his life. So probably last
Wow.
40 or 50 years. And so he really took the time, and maybe at some point, if you're out on the West Coast ever, I'll take you down there. But he's the one that really got me into it and stuff. So it's a awesome guy. But as soon as I had that
Awesome.
first experience, as soon as you have that first experience with different tea that's
Hmm.
different from what you grew up with, you're
Yes.
like, what
What have I been missing?
what not that I
What
not,
has this
not that I
been?
and I still enjoy the tea that I grew up with, but I was like, why has this not been a part of my life? Why have I not been presented with this option? And that's kind of where it all where the journey
Yes.
began. And then Robert and I, we co-founded the company that goes around the machine. And so he actually saw the vision, as soon as not
Well, my
well.
my
Go
my
ahead,
my
Robert.
background was in kitchen electric, so all those machines that you were talking about as far as coffee makers and things like that was really my background. That's how I met Tony. Was a company called Sultan, and we brought to market the George Foreman grill. So I don't know if Oh, you okay. Yep. remember that. So
Yeah.
we had a lot of relationships over in with factories overseas, and we're just in that space as far as kitchen electrics. And I loved what Tony had, and we stayed in touch over the years. And I went into my own company at one point, and when I left Sultan,
and got back in touch with Tony because I was at a factory and they were talking to me about a tea machine, and it just didn't seem to have what I knew was out there. And that's that literally that night I came back from the factory and I was in Asia and I called Tony and I said, "What are you doing with the patents?" And he said, funny that you should ask, because they just he was working with someone else that just ended, and then we put together a relationship to try to bring his patents into a machine, which is where we're at today.
Yeah,
It's great.
So do you have any questions off the bat? I just wanted to do this to share some some tips and tricks with you, and kind of give you some information I think will give you a head start as far as like utilizing the machine to its fullest potential. But just out of the box, do you have any like questions?
I don't really have any questions. I mean, it was very simple to set up. Yeah, it was very simple to set up. I've been using it multiple times a day. And I love it.
That's great. That's awesome. That's exactly the best I could hope to hear. So I'll just go through like some of the things that you might
Tony,
not know.
before you go into that, just Daniel, question: are other family members, in the house, are they drinking tea, or are you the only one?
So my wife,
the usage, I guess.
Yeah. So my wife, she also drinks the tea. She hasn't used the machine, but she'll ask me to make tea for her. But we've been drinking the tea from the samples that you all sent us as well. And love it. Love the tea. I'm not a mint person though. So Ashley, my wife, she's been drinking the Moroccan mint, and she loves that one. But yeah, so my wife does. I do have two small children, and we are starting to get them a little bit into the teas. So my youngest son especially, he really loves the teas. And then I've had some family over, and I've made tea for them with the machine. They all love it. And they've looked at the machine. They're like, wow, it looks easy to use, So yeah, so I have multiple family members that have been using it.
Okay.
So just on the note of the kids, there's a tea that there's actually a whole category of teas called tisanes, and there's a variation on that called it's like a juice product that we're bringing in from Germany, and it's in Germany they call it Kinder tea because it's specifically kind of not designed, but the kids love it. It's a good starter tea.
There's no caffeine.
It's got no caffeine, and it's like fruit juice. It's like fruit juice without the sugar. And if you want to sweeten it a little bit, you can sweeten it with honey crystals is what I use. I have a 12-year-old daughter, so we're always trying to get her to drink less sugar, but it's really, really hard because everything has a lot of sugar in it. Like even juice has a lot of sugar in it.
Right.
The idea is that you start off by making something that they'll drink, and then slowly you reduce the amount of sugar that's in it so that you get her down to, or get your kids down to something that is less than fruit juice, certainly, and it's still good for them. So I'm going to send you some of that as soon
that'd be awesome.
It'll be probably in February.
Okay.
And so it'll be on the water from there coming in the next month or so.
Nice.
So that, Robert,
thank you.
What's that, Tony?
Were you going to ask something before I?
Yeah, the only other thing I was going to ask is, you said other friends came in or family members came in. I guess one of the things that Tony and I wanted to accomplish with this was making it clear, so the vessel, the chamber that's reusable, that you can see things happening. We call it the magic inside, because that really, what Tony has is his patents are really in that chamber. It's not the machine. The patents are in the chamber. So is that, we're very close to it, so we love it. But I'm just curious, what your experiences and what your other family members' experiences have been in seeing that.
Yes. it just like you said, like it's just magical. I mean, you know, when the light turns on, the blue light turns on, and you're seeing the chamber fill up with the water, and you just see all the tea dancing around and doing its job and working out, you know, everybody's just mesmerized to it. So, and I even me, I'm not gonna lie, I'll be making it. I'll be sitting there staring at the tea sometimes because it's just it's so awesome to see the tea at work, you know, and you don't get to see that in anything else. And yeah, I mean, my wife, my kids, you know, when I invited, especially my dad loves tea, and so I brought him over and I was showing him the machine, and I brewed him a cup of tea, and he's just looking, and he was just mesmerized by it. He was like, that's amazing, you know, because he's you know, he's used to the he's always had the Mr. Coffee Maker, you know, with the
Sure.
tea, you know, insert, and you can't see anything because you stick your bags of tea in and you put a lid on it, and that's that. So yeah, so for him too, especially, he was like, wow, that's so amazing that I can actually see it, you know, working. And so yeah, it's wonderful.
I'll
Yeah,
never
so
forget.
it's now, I don't know, 5, Tony, 9 years later, whatever it is that we've been working on this. Daniel, I got to tell you, even today, this morning, when I made tea, I'm still looking at that chamber and watching it.
Yes,
It just grabs you. So
Well,
it
good. I'm
does.
glad to hear that it's transpiring, you know, to you and your family
Yes.
members.
you know, it was, that was one of the things that first like kind of blew my mind about tea. It was the first time when I saw the leaves, kind of larger leaves open. When I was first got into tea, I was like, that's the first time it made the connection for me in my mind that there was an actual plant in there. I don't know
Right.
why I never made that connection, but I remember the first leaf that I could actually, after it unfolded, I could identify it as a part of a tea leaf. Then the connection was made, but you know, it just never dawned on me that that was something that was growing on a tree at one point, even though you know, logically I knew that that was the case. You know, and then coffee, coming from a coffee background on my dad's side, you know, coffee all looks the same, you know, no matter
Yeah.
what, Kenya, Costa Rica, whatever, you know, it tastes different, but it all visually, you know, there's no point in even looking at it, you know. So I don't know, that was
Yes.
a huge like, and then the whole idea, it kind of went back to the like the historic reading of the tea leaves and the mystical nature of the tea was like, oh, now I get that whole thing. Is like each time that leaves unfold, it's a totally unique experience, visual experience, and that visual experience has always been static, sitting there in a cup, or you know, after the leaves have been drained.
Yes.
And this is the first time it's actually really a visual interactive experience, which is, you know, I notice it's different with every single material, you know, every type of
Yes.
leaf, or it leaves from different sizes, and even herbals, they act differently than so you do find yourself kind of looking at that and going, wow, it's really, I almost like after a while you'll identify, you'll know the pattern. It's really weird. You'll know the pattern without even kind of realizing that you're associating with the actual tea, and then the flavor, you know.
Yeah.
So
And the smell and the aroma that
yeah,
comes
yeah,
out of it.
all
Yes.
of that. So,
Yeah,
I
that
want to
can
make
be
sure that everybody understands you as number one, you know, our number one uh, ambassador, I guess, is what you be, like it or not. I guess you are that. You know,
I'll take it.
I get a lot of pushback. You know, over the years, I've gotten a lot of pushback from, you know, hardcore tea enthusiasts, thinking that, you know, in some way I'm trying to uh, displace traditional methods of brewing, or in some way, you know, assault that in some way, or stop that in some way. And you know, and that was shocking for me, because at first I was like, what? No, it's completely the opposite. My whole intention is to inspire more people to drink tea, so they will learn about that, and you know, and they'll learn how to make tea in traditional methods. And you know, it didn't occur to me that that would be a pushback point, because in coffee, you kind of, like everyone knows, I don't always have the chance to do a French press or a pour over, you know, but when I do, I'll do a French press. And but you know, I have to drink drip coffee when I'm, you know, when I'm
Yes.
pressed for time and everything. So I hope that that's the message that people start to get with this as well, is that it's meant to inspire people who just think I'm not a tea person. People always say that, like, oh, as soon as you bring up tea, they'll let you know I'm not a tea person, because I want to get into that person and say, look, try this. Now that the conversation is no longer about the brewing process, that it's always been about the majesty of the
Yes.
brewing process, and you've got to know all that and do all that right, and that's great. But when you take all that away and you just make it about the tea and about the origin and about, I mean, the tea you're drinking, the black tea, the larger, the Sri Lankan rain,
Yes.
that came directly from the factory. So that tea you're drinking is probably 2 years fresher than any tea you could buy in the United States, even from the best tea broker, because it came directly from the actual garden. And Sri Lanka's been at war for almost 25 years, 30 years, civil war internally, but
Yeah.
no one, and so the country is really like war torn, and nobody knows about it though. So it's like, we hope to down the road, we hope to bring awareness to these areas that, because they're not oil, they don't produce oil, they just produce tea, that no one really cares to know about it. But
Right.
now that the war is over, they still have rolling blackouts there. The 4 hours a day they have electricity, and so imagine the quality of tea and the what could be achieved if that country was actually stabilized. And
Yeah.
hopefully, we can play a part in doing some of that too, with giving back to the country. But that particular tea in that garden, I met that family 20 years ago at a tea show, and they were just trying to they were really just trying to kind of like break into the American market and try to, and I've maintained that relationship. And so we're going to be working with that garden to actually modify the processing of the tea for the brewing process, to try to, get more out of it, and see if we match the processing with the process, if we can get, maybe something that's never been tasted before, a totally unique tea flavor that hasn't been extracted before. But so that's the longer term goal. But that tea, you'll notice that tea has a totally different like smell to it, and the flavor's got another dimension, and that really, all that is freshness, to be honest with you.
Yes.
I mean, that is just what fresh tea tastes like. And that's the other thing you think about, like, whoa, I have not been drinking fresh tea for my entire life.
And that's what our subscription service is about, as far as different teas that will work with different gardens, and this broker that we work with for other teas out of Germany, and just to bring that freshness to people like you and our other ambassadors as we grow.
Yeah.
That's the whole direction that we're going with. So.
Well, it's incredible. I love it. And like you said, it's definitely different. I mean, while I was brewing my first cup, I was like, wow, that's a new smell I haven't smelled. And it, my mouth was just watering, and that's actually what I'm drinking right now too.
Nice.
Awesome.
Nice. So Daniel, there's Tony and I got some samples the other day from our broker in Germany on a lemongrass and ginger tea. And Tony was talking about, different people, and you were talking about different people, whether they like tea, not like tea. I'm down in South Florida right now for the holidays, and family members are here, and they don't drink tea. And last night, I made this various cups of lemongrass and ginger tea, and every single one of them went, wow, what is this? That's a spicy taste, which was the ginger and the lemon, and they just loved the taste of it, and each of them drank and asked for more cups.
But that's you'll find that also is you might be super excited about tea, and then it just doesn't resonate with somebody. It's just
right.
Yeah.
And then you'll do this other tea that you're not so excited about, but you think, oh, this is interesting, and it just blows their mind. And it's like, so it's a process of going. What I found is, rather than try to convince somebody, oh, no, this is really good, I mean, there's
Mhm.
5,000 tea gardens, and there's all these, there's herbal gardens out there all across the United States. Actually, you're very close to one of the only plantations in the United States, in Charleston.
Mm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, down there. So at some point, you should try to get up there. I don't know, they're still doing
I think they still
after
do
COVID if
tours.
they're doing tours, but
I'll have to check it out.
yeah, because I've not been there yet. I hope to go at some point, but yeah, it's just a matter of going through a variety of teas and saying, oh yeah, then all of a sudden it just goes bam. And that's part of the
Yes.
reason why we made an open system where you could put, use whatever tea you want in there, is because, there's so many teas that the opportunity to market and sell everything that someone would need to take advantage of a machine like this is it's just impossible. So,
And
that's why I made it so not locked system where you would have to use our tea in order to do it. You can, put any tea in there, and it will work. Even tea bags, like if I wanted to
Mhm.
get somebody started, and they're drinking tea bags, they can open the tea bag and dump the tea bag, the
They
contents.
tested it.
Yeah, or they could just put the two tea bags. That's why with the jet, there's two jets on each side of this, and you just
Yep.
put one tea bag on each side, and if that's what gets people started and brings consistency, then it's well, I'm not a snob, so I don't. I kind of am, but I'm not to that point of where I don't want people to be happy and try whatever they want, because I think getting them started down the path, that once they understand that there's more out there, they'll start their own journey, and
Hmm.
then eventually they'll land somewhere where they're happy. So
And that's what we
Absolutely.
find is nice with the machine because it becomes a beverage machine. You can create so many different drinks throughout the whole day. And Tony will run through, some different recipes and things like that. But you can have something, for the morning that maybe has some caffeine that you want to, have that pick me up. At lunchtime you can make an iced tea. And at night, like that lemongrass and ginger that I made, was at night. So it wasn't caffeinated, no one had a problem sleeping and it
Right.
just tasted great. So, and there's milk base that we can add to it
Hmm.
to create a chai latte or, things that people are loving right now.
so
Absolutely.
what I kind of the key of what I wanted to do is just tell you a few things about, like, that you might not pick up right away,
Okay.
about the machine and the brewing process. So I don't know if you noticed that when you take the brewing chamber and you shake it, it rattles. Like there's a little bit of a so there's a
Yes.
valve there. Yeah, there's a valve in the top of that in the top here. You
Hmm.
can't
Yeah,
right
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 there.
yeah right
Yep.
there. And that valve has a little ball in it. And what that ball does is it leaves the chamber open to the outside atmospheric pressure or outside air, so that the a bubble doesn't form inside of the brewing chamber.
Mm.
In closed and sealed systems, if that wasn't there, like with Keurig, what happens is a bubble forms in the top of the Keurig
Pickup.
capsule, and it just forces the water in and out really fast, in and out, and that
Mm.
you don't get a full flavor, because the brewable substance doesn't get a chance to infuse and to rehydrate, and then
Gotcha.
and so what we did, there's two types of pressure. There's atmospheric pressure, which is like what we're under, 14 pounds of pressure holding us to the earth.
Mhm.
And then there is like just velocity of water pressure. So what we're talking about is like atmospheric pressure of water. So like you would be like when you go diving, or you're down at uh, hundreds of meters under the ocean, the pressure of the water pushing
Yeah.
you
Tony, you
down
just, you
much
cut out for
heavier.
a second.
Well, that's the so what it ends up happening is
You- Your
when the
volume cut out.
when the water fills.
Your volume cut out.
Oh, can you hear me now? Test, test, test,
Yeah,
test.
you're like on
Yes.
a
No?
7 second time delay again.
Yeah, it's a delay.
Okay, hold on one second. Let me see.
So Daniel, where in Florida are you?
I'm in West Palm Beach.
West Palm Beach. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. So I'm down by Boynton Beach area.
Oh, okay. Not too far.
Right.
Okay, is that is that any better? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so the what ends up happening is the water fills, and then once it's full, it floats that ball up, and that seals the environment.
Okay.
So the reason I'm telling you that is sometimes that ball gets stuck. So
Okay.
before every every brew or whatever, you want to shake it,
Let's shake it up a little
or
bit.
just tap it, or tap it on the tap it on the counter, and that will
Okay.
dislodge the ball if it happens to get stuck up there. Or if maybe way down the road you might need a new chamber or something, or that ball you might need to take that off and clean that ball or something. But that's the function that it serves. It's a very important part of it.
So that's part of the pattern.
Yeah, and it's just that without that, what you'll end up getting is the water will come in and go right out. It'll come in and
Yes.
go out. And even though the chamber is full, there'll be a bubble that's pressing down on it, and so you won't get the residence time adjacent to tea. You'll notice there's something missing in the tea, and so that's the thing that you have to kind of watch out for there. And then I'm trying to think about, is there anything else, Robert, that you that we've encountered that you think
No, I mean, what Tony's talking about with that getting stuck, and we've been using this now for multiple years. It does happen. It doesn't happen frequently, but
Yeah.
I even forget to do it most of the time. But just take the lid while it's off and just like Tony did, just a little shake, just to hear that, and then just put it on and right into the machine. You're ready to go.
and it's
Sounds
more
good.
just something, if you notice that the flavor might be off on a tea or something like that, you might just want to think, hey, maybe that's the cause of it. That's usually something like that.
Okay.
The other thing is, you'll notice, and this is with just about any tea brewing mechanism, the more tea you add, at some point you get diminishing returns. And what that means is, if you stuff the tea, as much tea as you can get into the chamber, at some point you impede the ability of the leaves to open, or for whatever, the leaf to expand. So I think depending on the leaf size, you'll recognize that may be a situation that you face also, where you put, depending on the tea, you put too much tea in, and then it ends up restricting the flow and getting you.
Yeah, I learned that.
Yeah.
Already?
I put my own tea in, and I filled the chamber up too high. And as soon as I turned it on and I saw it filling up, I was like, I put too much in. So I learned my lesson.
Yeah, and that's we had to kind of decide on a brewing chamber size and kind of what people would, and that's the ironic thing about tea, is that the tea has all these you always see these tea brewers with all these giant baskets for tea, and they always have these giant vessels to steep tea in. It's like, but a
You don't
pound
really
of
need
tea,
it.
you don't need it. A pound of tea yields
Right.
4 times what a pound of coffee yields. And so people have this coffee mentality, and then they end up trying to apply that to tea, and it doesn't
Yeah.
work because it yields 4 times the amount that if you misweigh it, or if you do a mounded scoop as opposed to a flat scoop, you'll get a dramatically different product or
Right.
in beverage, and people just don't understand that because they think on a coffee scale. And so just keep that in mind, like when you're making tea
Okay.
for people or whatever, or like if you're using loose tea, that your tea and whatever, you just make sure that the closest you can get to the the same weight. That's the other deceptive part of tea, is that because the particle sizes are all different shapes, people visually look at it and they say, oh, that's probably the same weight. But if you actually start weighing it out, you'll be shocked at how much the volume of tea is for tea that is much lighter, like
Right.
something like chamomile. Chamomile is so light that in order to get the right enough weight, you have to use a lot of chamomile. So anyway,
You would be
that's
overflowing
another,
the chamber, getting the same amount of weight
Right.
yeah,
for chamomile.
just another tip and stuff like that. Try to think of, let's see, the screen in the bottom. We're going to send out instructions if you ever need to take that out and clean it. You should be able to clean it with like a brush or something
Okay.
with like, just, it's got a very fine mesh. So I haven't had a problem with it getting clogged yet, but down the road, years down the road, you may have that issue. So kind of watch the screen in the bottom, and I will
Okay.
send instructions. You're really early, because we kind of just came up with this idea to give a machine away probably 2 weeks
Literally.
before we did the drawing. So it was kind of like this thing, just come up, why not do this? We got a lot of people coming into the group, and so let's do something fun like that. And so we're going to have materials that come out. We're going to have, I'm going to do recipe videos, and I'm going to do instructional videos on how to, take the screen apart and clean it and stuff. But that's part of why I want to have this call with you, just to kind of give you some areas to watch. And then when you get the materials, it'll make a lot more sense to you. Then, so yeah, clean the bottom
Any
screen.
questions that you have, just shoot us an email. You have both of our emails,
Okay.
phone numbers, whatever. We're available like all the time.
Sounds great.
The other one I want to show you, the honey crystals. I don't know if have you ever used like crystallized honey?
I have not. I have not.
You
That's
can put.
that's a new new thing to do for 2023.
I'll send you the I'll go ahead and just mail you some from
Oh,
Amazon.
thank you.
And you can put those directly in the brewing chamber. And so if you want to
Oh,
just
wow.
like add a little bit of sweetness to something, or you could just it's fine to put those right in the brewing chamber.
They're like
And then
granulized.
it's
Nice.
100% honey. It's just there's nothing else in it. It's just honey that's been dehydrated and turned into a crystal. And
Okay. And
it,
the
it's
water like reactivates it.
yeah, it just
Exactly.
reactivates it, and it doesn't ever go into like the honey consistency again. It goes right into an infused state. So
Wow.
it,
Okay.
yeah, it works really well. And so if you
That'd be
want to
great.
sweeten, I've been sweetening. Like I still make like the sweet tea.
Mhm.
Like I've used that the tea, the Sri Lanka rain, and then what I do
Mhm.
is I brew it. I put crystallized honey in the chamber, and then I actually put a tiny little bit of baking soda. And
Okay.
what that my grandmother used to do it.
I've
Um,
heard I've heard of people doing it.
yeah, some people don't like it. Some people, but if you're from the South, there's a flavor profile that that people will recognize. And so you may recognize that whether or not your grandmother, or whoever you used to make the tea, whether they did it, but it is something that was a tradition. And so people always were like wondering, why can't I replicate that flavor? Well, because it actually changes the acidity of the tea. It changes the
Mhm.
complete chemical makeup of the NT. So, I just a tiny little pinch or whatever, you could try that and see if it's what it tends to do is take some of the bitterness. I don't think that tea is bitter at all, but
Mhm.
if for people who do think tea is bitter, it takes that bitterness, any residual bitterness completely out of the tea.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it. Other than I will be sending you the videos and stuff like that when they're done. The
Great.
other one is what I use for like a chai mixture is
Mhm.
I get sweetened condensed milk, and I mix it 50-50 with 2% whole or 2% regular milk, two
Okay.
so 2% fat. Go 50-50 with sweetened condensed milk. So what you could do is dump the sweetened condensed milk out, and then you use the can and pour the milk into the can, and then
Okay.
equal parts, and then you steam that or heat it up, whatever you may use for steaming, or you can just heat up on the stove or in the microwave. And then it's 80% tea and 20% that. So it's almost the reverse of like a latte or a mocha, a coffee
Right.
drink, where they're 80% milk and the 20% product. This is 80% tea and 20%
And when
the
you
milk.
taste this, Daniel, it's another one of those wow moments, and everyone in the family will be addicted to this thing.
Oh goodness.
It is
And
so
that's for
good.
chai. Like if you want to use it for
Yeah.
chai first and like dial the recipe in with chai, and then what you can do is then just plug in any tea.
Yeah.
You could, and it's interesting to see, because then you know exactly what where the flavor profile is coming from. It's particularly interesting because most chais that you get are concentrates, and so they're
Mm,
not fresh brewed because there's no easy way to fresh brew chai. I
right.
mean, if you go into an Indian household, you would see a pot on the stove, and chai would be all day long. Chai would be on the stove, just brewing, just steeping and over a low heat, and then they would be drinking it throughout the day. And so that's something. So for the first time, you can actually do fresh brewed chai. So if you go out there and find some interesting, we have a chai that's coming. It's not here yet, but you'll get that.
Okay.
But if you can use any chai in that recipe, and it's just mind blowing. Or an Earl Grey, like you can even do an Earl Grey like tea latte. It's amazing. So
Perfect.
if you want to test that,
Sounds great.
so that's pretty much everything as far as the machine is concerned. Oh, one other thing. I don't know if you figured out, but there's ears on this. There's little ears here, or little slots, and so it doesn't screw on. So if someone else uses the machine and they have one of those ears that's out, if one's in and one's out, you'll get a leaking, and the machine won't close properly. So just be cognizant of that you have to drop in both sides to those ears. We're working on an indicator for that, but we haven't come up with a good solution for it quite yet.
Okay.
The other thing that
thing-
you'll see is when you when you put it into the machine where that white dot is, where the valve is, if you
Yes.
put that at either the 3 or the 6 o'clock, I'm sorry, the 3 or the 9 o'clock
Yeah,
position,
3 or 9 o'clock
you'll
position.
see better movement inside because our jets are
Okay.
front and back at that point versus
Yeah,
on
the
the
jet
side.
faces you. The jet
Perfect.
will face directly at you.
It does.
So if you're
It doesn't
if you
matter
wanna
where you
watch
put it in. If
Yeah,
someone
you
just does it, but if you want to see more or better motion, do it at 3 and
More
9 o'clock.
magic.
Exactly.
imagine.
Perfect.
All right. Well,
Awesome.
that's all I have.
Any other questions you have for us?
No, I don't have any questions. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Great. We're glad to hear that because we love it and we want the world to love it. And it's it's been a long journey for Tony and I, and just hearing your response because you're outside of our world, as
Yes.
far as who we're, our family's going to tell us, oh, it's great, it's this, but it's great to hear, from you who got it and are using it and the family's using it. So, we
Yeah, it's
appreciate the
wonderful.
feedback, and this
And-
is wonderful.
And you,
Of
as
course.
we come up with other versions of the machine, which we've got versions in the works, and in the they're maybe a couple of years away, maybe a year and a half away. You'll get the first of those machines too. So just
Awesome.
yeah.
Yay.
yeah. So I want to.
I really do. I was so excited when I saw the first the first ad for it. I was like, I have to have that. So I'm so happy to have it in our home now. And I even told my wife too. I said, in a few years, I'm sure there's gonna be another one. I'm gonna have to get that.
And you're right. There is. We have other generations that that we try to come out with
it's
first,
coming,
and we came out with this one first, which is phenomenal. But you know, there's a lot more excitement to come.
It's great.
We're going to launch, and we're trying to post.
Not
And
that
I know you're following Facebook, but we are going
would
to
you mind
launch
if
our
we
Kickstarter
use-
campaign on this, which will be really January 10th is what we're shooting for. So, and then for, you know, that community that you know, puts down and pays for what they have and the subscription and everything else, those machines and teas will start shipping in end of May of this year.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah. Do you mind if we used part of this video in promotion or any clips of it? Would you mind that?
Absolutely. Use whatever you need.
Thank you
Well,
so
thank
much.
you. That'd be,
Of
Yeah.
course.
we haven't really done any press or anything like that. So something that's missing in our bio is we don't have a lot of people outside of our inner circle that, could say, hey, I don't know these guys. And, but I do want you to be honest about, don't feel restrained about being honest about, any tips or things you have for people if somebody contacts you or whatever.
Yeah.
Just feel free to tell them the truth and give them any insights you may have that even I've missed. So
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's been wonderful so far. I was sitting there and I was trying to kind of come up with a list of things that, and I couldn't come up with anything.
Okay.
well,
if
thank you very
you
much.
ever do, please reach out because
Of course.
it's all part of our learning too.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you
Well,
so
thank
much.
you very much, and thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank
And
you.
give our best to your family, and I have a great 2023.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. It's nice meeting you both.
Pleasure to
Take
meet
care,
you.
Daniel. Thanks again.
Bye-bye. You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.